Hello and welcome to Chef Carter's Cooking Corner. Today, we are celebrating the amazing fresh produce you can find in Indiana this time of year. We'll start with crispy fried green tomatoes, move on to sweet and savory southern fried corn, and finish with a quick 30-minute meal made with fresh garden vegetables and hearty beef sausage. Come along as we explore these delicious seasonal dishes. First up, a southern favorite with a local twist, crispy fried green tomatoes. These tangy golden bites make the most of Indiana's fresh summer tomatoes, and I'll show you how to get that perfect crunch and flavor.
So, I'm putting my knife at the top so we don't knock it down. So I have, for the mix, an egg with a couple tablespoons of milk. And you're going to want this to kind of soften the egg up. And I also put just a dash of seasoning salt because we want the seasoning in every layer, but we don't want to over season it. So that's why we put just a dash. So this will be our middle step actually. Our first step will be the flour, and you can kind of see where I put just a dash of seasoning salt over there. And I blend it in very nicely. So that'll be our first step. And then our last step will be the cornmeal mix. Now I always get the self-rising yellow cornmeal mix. It just seems to taste better with it. You know, if you just have cornmeal, it will work too. So as you can see, we start by coating all the surfaces of the tomato. Some will not look as coated as others. That's all right. All right, so then we dip it. And then we flip it. Dip and flip. Dip and flip. All right. And then we're going to take it over to the cornmeal. Again, everything has been lightly seasoned with the seasoning salt. Now you can just use salt and pepper, or you can use your own seasoning. It's up to you. Again, I'm rolling this around, making sure it's covered. That over to the cornmeal mix. Again, this is for 2 tomatoes. I'm just showing you one today. I'll do the other one later because it's nothing like fresh fried tomatoes, fresh fried green tomatoes. All right, again, cover all surfaces. Okay, we'll put that to the side. Move this one over. This. Just whatever gets it done faster for you. This is one of the end pieces here. No problem. They're all delicious. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'll wash my hands, slide this over so you can see it. Alright. So I got my skillet heating up. And it's going to get nice and hot. And again, it has been heating for a few minutes now since I started cutting the tomatoes. And, you know, iron skillets, they tend to hold heat. It takes a minute for them to get warmed up, but once they do, they hold that heat. So please be very careful when handling your iron skillet. Now, once we have our iron skillet, we're going to have to make sure it's nice and hot. So I'm going to go ahead and bring you over here to the skillet. Here we go. My nice skillet. See, it's just a skillet. It's on medium heat. And what I'm going to do now is Again, there's no oil. You do not want to do this when there's oil in the pan. Only when the pan is empty. Okay, see how nice and hot that is? That's ready for frying. So, go ahead and move my towels out of the way. All right, we're going to put just a little bit of oil. The recipe says about 1/4 cup. You just need just enough to cover the bottom of your pan. As you can see here, that's what it's doing. So we waited just a couple minutes for that. So now what I'm going to do is carefully place my tomatoes in the skillet. Okay, these are nice and green. Okay, this one I'm just going to kind of scoop instead. There. Ooh, careful there. You gotta be careful. Grease is hot. You know, those of you who grew up in the South, even though I didn't grow up in the South, I'm only the first generation to grow up here in the North. I grew up old-fashioned. It's amazing. I remember getting popped in the head a few times while the iron skillet was on and they were frying chicken, and they always fried that chicken up hot. So again, these are nice and green tomatoes. Preferably, I prefer ones that have just turned red or have the little red stripes. For some reason, I believe they taste a little better. Okay, so I'm going to turn this up just a hair to get this frying a little bit hotter. You want to watch the flame though on your skillet. So here you can kind of see the flame. It's not too high. Here is high, so you want about medium. Once your skillet gets hot, you want about medium. Alright, so while you're watching that fry, I'm going to go ahead and clean up a little bit. I want to actually save this for later. I'm going to cover these up and put them in the refrigerator since I only did one tomato. Alrighty then. Yes, they look beautiful. Alright, I'm going to start removing some of these. This one's nice and brown on both sides. Check this one. Yes. Actually, I'm going to turn this down a hair. It's getting hot. You got to monitor your temperature. And when you're a beginning cook, it's kind of hard to tell. But if it's starting to brown really quickly, you may want to go ahead and turn that temperature down. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and use this because that temperature went hot. And as I said, once the heat gets up on these iron skillets, it stays hot. Now, tell you how southern old-fashioned my family is. We actually have an iron skillet that's from the mid-1800s, which is amazing. I probably cooked these a little too high. My bad. But, I'm nervous. And I think they look pretty good. Now, some people may salt them after they get out of the oven. I'm someone who, I like a little salt, but I do not like a lot of salt.
And there you have it. Beautifully golden fried green tomatoes. Enjoy them as a side, an appetizer, piled high on a sandwich, or just on their own. They're a perfect way to enjoy Indiana's fresh tomatoes this time of year. Next, we're moving on to southern fried corn. Sweet, tender corn with a little bit of that buttery, sweet, savory flavor that's a staple in southern kitchens. This recipe is quick, easy, and absolutely delicious. All right, so now that we have the corn shucked, you can see I got the husk and the silk right there. You know, back in the day, they would use that for different things, and even the corn cob. So now I got to remove the kernels from the corn cob, and I just use a serrated knife. You can use a regular bladed knife as well, but for me, serrated seems to work better. And then what I do after I cut so much off, I use the back of the knife to what my grandma called milking the corn cob. And that's just getting like the juice of the corn out, making sure you get all the edible bits out of that little pocket that's left after you cut the corn. All right, it does get a little bit messy and I lost a couple kernels, but not a lot. So after I do all the corn, there we go. It's in a nice bowl and I'm going to put that there. Actually, we're only going to use about half of this, and it's probably about a little less than 32 ounces that we're going to be using to make the cream corn. All right, so I start by cooking a little bacon. And so I happen to have, I think it was about 7 pieces here. And you cook it till it's nice and brown. And then you take it out of the skillet and set it to the side while you cook your corn. And make sure you hide it because, you know, I've learned over the years you gotta hide this or people will eat it. And then you'll have no corn left, or no corn, you'll have no bacon left for the corn. So make sure you hide that well or cook it while nobody else is home. And stay out of it yourself. All right. So I was good. I didn't eat one piece, y'all. All right, once your corn is in the skillet, you want to put about a quarter cup of water in there and then put the lid on and let it cook about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you want to put a half a stick of butter, that's 4 tablespoons of butter, in with the corn and 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. Now, if you don't have heavy whipping cream, just use 2 cups of milk and add a full stick of butter, and it'll still give you that full fat flavor. And I know it's a lot, but this is something you don't make every day. And when you do make it, you only eat a little bit. All right. So just a little bit of corn and a lot of veggies with it. All right. So now we want to put this on high until it starts to bubble. And once it's really bubbling, you put it on medium. And then we want to cook it until the cream reduces by a little less than half. All right. All right. Now that this corn is on its way to cooking and we're reducing this cream, we want to add our seasoning. So I added about a quarter teaspoon of pepper and a half a teaspoon of salt. And so I keep it really simple because, you know, when back in the day, salt and pepper was even kind of hard to get sometimes. And so those are the traditional flavorings, but you can put what you like. But you know, sometimes, you know, my family would grow their own peppers and they'd have it hanging on the ceiling. So sometimes grandma would grab a little cayenne pepper and crush it up in there. All right, and so I'm going to put like a teaspoon of sugar in there as well to kind of get more of the sweetness out of this corn. Now that's optional, you don't have to do it, but if you do it, just add a pinch. You use this sugar like it's salt in this recipe. Also, you can see how the cream is really reducing here. And I said a little less than half, but I really meant you want it to reduce a little more than half. So that's going to be real creamy and thick sauce there. All right. And so again, you can add hot peppers in this. I'm actually going to be adding some sweet peppers, and those basically bell peppers, or as they call it in Indiana, mangoes. I don't know why, but in Indiana we call green peppers mangoes. So there we go. They were actually in the freezer, and so I just put them in the pan, and I used my spatula to break them up into nice chunks because I don't want them too fine, you know, but just kind of as you stir in the corn, just kind of break them up as they thaw, and then they'll cook because that cream's got a little more way to go. All right, so we're gonna stir this in here as it cooks. All right, and this is really yummy, y'all. And to be honest, this is the first time in probably about 10 years that I've made this recipe at home. I've shown it in my cooking classes. I've shown some of my students how to make this. But like I said, I don't cook it often, and when I do, it's usually when corn is in season. All right, now that my cream is down, I'm going to add that bacon on top. And once you add the bacon, you just mix it in there and turn off the heat, and it is ready to go. And it will thicken as it cools. So I'm chopping the bacon up a little finer so it distributes a little more evenly throughout the dish. All right, and see, doesn't that look delicious? And it is. And I don't know, some of y'all may have heard me say I'm semi-vegetarian, and that means like a lot of vegetables and a little bit of meat. And this is what this is. And so actually when I had this, um, I had it with these big slices of tomato. So you can either have this, just a little serving in a bowl, like I'm serving it up here. Now don't take too much because it's good, but if you eat too much, that's going to make your tummy feel a little funny. So a little is good, don't overindulge. All right, so you can eat it this way, and look how creamy it is, right? All right, and as good as it is by itself, it's even better when you serve it with tomato slices. See those nice, beautiful, fresh tomatoes? This is what we bought from the fruit stand. I call it a fruit stand or vegetable stand, produce stand. And there we go. Nice, yummy dinner.
Finally, let's make a quick 30-minute meal with fresh garden vegetables and beef sausage. This colorful, hearty dish highlights the bounty of Indiana gardens at this time of year, and it comes together faster than you think. Perfect for a weeknight dinner. Babe, I love you so. I want you to know that I miss your love the minute you walk out that door. So I really do have quite a few vegetables to cut up here. One time saving tip is to cut up your vegetables on a weekend and then cook them up on the day you're ready for your meal. So in this case, I had the time, and really it doesn't take as much time as you think to cut up the vegetables. And so it is really a 30-minute meal, and that's including the prep time. Once your sausage and vegetables are cut up, you're going to put your sausage in a skillet with just a little bit of oil.
You don't want to put too much because the oil or the sausage will actually render out more fat. All right, so I like to get them started on one side, and then I will start moving them around, sort of sauteing them. And for anyone who's ever taken a culinary class or French, saute is French for jump. All right, so that means you're moving the vegetables around, they're jumping. All right, you can see they're getting a nice color on them. And then I try to flip them over to make sure each piece has a little of that nice brown color on it. Now, once your sausage is done, you are going to remove it from the pan and put it to the side. And so, if you want at this point, you could wipe the grease out with a paper towel. It's up to you. I like to leave it in if it's not too much grease. And in this case, it's not a lot of grease for the amount of vegetables I'm cooking up. So I'm just going to add the vegetables in there once I get all the sausage out. So then you add your vegetables and you will cook those up until they are tender. And a lot of times I'll add just a little bit of water to help steam the vegetables. You want to add your seasoning, salt, pepper, maybe a little Italian seasoning, whatever seems right for you. You make this to your taste for your household. All right. And you can even cover these to cook as well. It's up to you. But covering them will help them to cook a little faster. Again, I used medium heat to cook this dish. And as you can see, the vegetables, they're getting softer and softer. And people ask, well, how do I know when it's done? And I will say, it's done when it looks yummy, if that makes sense. All right, so I'm adding a little more water. And then I add like a teaspoon of cornstarch. I'm going to move the vegetables over and add that teaspoon of cornstarch. And you could do this a little water and cornstarch in a cup and then add it, but I just did it this way because I don't know. It's just more convenient, one less dish to wash. But what the cornstarch does is it adds this glisten to the dish. It adds a mouthfeel that makes it silkier or smoother. And so that's why I like to do that. And so just in case you missed it, the way I seasoned this was a little bit of salt and pepper and Italian seasoning, because Italian seasoning has that blend that's just perfect for this. But again, you make it as you like it for your home. And you could put whatever vegetables you like. So once the vegetables are pretty much cooked through, you add the sausage, and there you have it. You have your 30-minute meal ready to serve up to your family. It stores well too and reheats like a dream. I hope you enjoyed these dishes featuring the fresh flavors of Indiana this season. I hope you try them at home, and thank you for watching Chef Carter's Cooking Corner, and I will see you next time.